does the president mean there? Is California mismanaging its forests?
No, the federal government is certainly has a question about their management of the national forest, but this fire at Paradise was not in a national forest, and in fact it was on private land. The real problem here is the way in which we have built our cities into the wildland-urban interface, and climate change. Climate change is very real, Mr. President. It is a very important factor in these fires because we get the rains in the winter, we get heavy vegetation growth, and then it gets extremely hot and dry. Southern California, 365 days a year fire season. That is the new normal. Used to be 9 months. Northern California, it's 10 months, 11 months now. So climate change is very real, and it is affecting all of this. Forest management is an issue. It's one that we can deal with. In fact, we passed legislation last spring that would separate the U.S. Forest Service's budget into two parts: firefighting, which has consumed all the money in the past, and forest management. So we will be dealing with that, but this fire at Paradise was not a national forest issue. The president is just plain wrong about that.
Yeah.
It is a devastating urban fire. 26,000 people forced out of their homes, an entire city wiped out.
Some of them your constituents, certainly. Does it sound like the president is going to deliver what they need at this time?
Well, hopefully he'll deliver a lot of empathy and sympathy, which is not his normal pattern. He needs to do that, but also we do have a federal presidential disaster declaration that does open up the spigot for money to be made available. But we also have an additional thing here. We're going to have to rebuild a city. And we're going to have to rebuild the escape routes from that city, the evacuation routes. I have a bill introduced introduced it 6 months ago. Had no idea we should have been in place now. That's going to require an augmentation to the upcoming omnibus appropriation bill, which we'll deal with when we get back after Thanksgiving. Probably somewhere in the range of $700 million to rebuild these cities, to rebuild the roads and other factors, other public property that has been destroyed.
Oh, to be on board Marine One right now. And I want to thank you for speaking with our producers in the control booth during the commercial break, because the White House, for security reasons, does not lay out a step-by-step, the timing for the president and where he will be. But it is your belief that he will be doing some sort of an aerial survey, which makes sense on board Marine One there. But considering with whom he is traveling right now, California Governor Jerry Brown, who has long been an advocate of climate change and trying to support the scientific evidence to prove it and get California in line along with the rest of the world on protecting the planet. Lieutenant Governor and then California Governor-elect Gavin Newsom with him as well. Do you think that this president may be able to be influenced by these two while he's on board Marine One? Might this be the kind of proof that is needed to say climate change is real?
Well, I would hope so. This is a good opportunity. Those certainly Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom have been way out in front on climate change, as have I. And now they have the president literally trapped in a helicopter. Now, whether the earphones and headsets are going to be working, I don't know. But the president really must lead the world on this issue. What's happened is the president has has taken the United States out of the solution of climate change, and in fact is making very significant steps to increase the amount of greenhouse gases that the United States is currently and would in the future emit into the atmosphere. Take, for example, the effort that he's making to roll back emission controls, deny California the opportunity to set its own emission controls, and his effort to try to increase the production and the use of coal in the United States by eliminating one of the regulations that the Obama administration put in place. The president must change his policy if the next generations are going to survive. The world is changing. Climate is changing. Sea levels rising. Fires are more ominous, and hurricanes are stronger than ever before. Mr. President, listen carefully to Jerry Brown. He's a leader on this. Gavin Newsom, listen to them. And I'm sure they will plead the case.
Congressman, I want to take a look at what is going to go down in Washington in the future because the new House has signaled a plan for oversight of the president. We're talking about this so-called canon of subpoenas. Can you talk about what that is? Axios is reporting, sir, that 85 Trump targets, 85 plus, really, Trump targets exist there. Is that true? Can you list 85 things that require investigating?
Well, let's start at the very
list,
beginning.
But, you know.
Well, I could probably name half of them right off the top, but start with the beginning. The Constitution of the United States is set up with checks and balances. Article 1 is the Congress of the United States given explicit authority and, in fact, mandate to oversee the functions of the administration. Unfortunately, the Republican Congress really didn't do that. What they basically did was to go after Benghazi ad infinitum, or ad nauseum. That's basically what they did. We need to go after those misdeeds, the corruption that has been so apparent in this administration, but more importantly, we need to deal with issues like the environmental protection agencies and the policies which I just spoke about, about the coal issue, about auto emissions, about what is driving the administrations to make our climate worse. We do have another constitutional issue. It's called the Emoluments Clause, which strictly prohibits the president and public officials, myself included, from receiving any gift, any payment, any emolument from a foreign government, prince, or kingdom. Now, that's a big question for the Trump hotel in Washington, D.C., and other Trump properties around the world.
So beyond emoluments, and certainly there are some lawsuits underway right now against the president for having violated the Emoluments Clause, but do the Democrats have the right to go after the president's personal finances?
The answer is yes, if it involves some problem that is existing in his administration. And that does tie back to the emoluments. He never gave up his ownership or put his properties into a blind trust. He controls that trust today, including the operation of it, although he's handed it over to his son, but nonetheless he controls it, and he has the full opportunity to take any of the assets and profits at any time. So that's a financial question that ties back into conflict of interest, ties back into his foreign policy questions. The Saudi Arabia issue is in play right now, and it also ties back to the emoluments. So yes, there is a nexus there, but that's not directly. His tax returns are another area that will clearly be looked at appropriately by the Ways and Means Committee. But there are other issues that are equally important here that we must get to. Some of these deal with the ongoing policies. What I want you to know is that this new Democratic Congress wants to go to the fundamental issues that we campaigned on. We campaigned on health care. We have to absolutely guarantee that every American can get health insurance and that the health insurance will not cost more or be unavailable because of a pre-existing condition. We also campaigned on infrastructure. Going back to that fire in Paradise, 2 rural mountain roads to get out of there. We need to make sure that there are evacuation routes, and that's the piece of legislation I've introduced. We have enormous infrastructure needs. These are the things, including, and I might add, this goes back to your original question, the issue of corruption, the issue of voting rights, the issue of voting suppression. These are on our positive agenda to deal with the issues of America.
You mentioned infrastructure. That may be a place to start because it would seem that there is bipartisan support to try to get things right, given the example in Paradise and the rest. John Garamendi, always good to see you, sir. Thank you so much, and a happy Thanksgiving this week. Coming up next, what could be questions the president might be having trouble answering to Robert Mueller, and what are his lawyers doing to help him?
Sponsored by Lincoln Financial, helping you create a secure